All righty. Howdy ho, everybody. Thanks so much for allowing a scruffy Texas populace to come in here and raise a little hell with you, raise a little hope, raise some issues as well. But most importantly, to raise the kind of collective spirit that Maurice was just talking about, and others of you have been sharing as well. It's a joy for me and Deanna to come in here to this high church of the Holy Williness and see what we can make happen together, not just in this room, but most importantly, as we depart from here to struggle at the grassroots level. My longtime co-worker and co-conspirator, Deanna here, DZ as we call her, she is a fabulous media techno wizard. She is a social networking guru. She is a progressive, radical agitator. She is an all-around good human being. And I can tell you also that you're probably thinking, what about that hair? Well, she does not dye her hair. That is the result of a fertile and fiery brain in action. It comes forward.
I'm going to start using that Hightower. I tell people that people ask me what my natural hair color is. I say this is my natural hair color. My hair color that I was assigned at birth is brown.
There you go. Right. So, but you folks here are the stars of this afternoon's Rally for Rural Power. And that's the theme that we have. Notice I did not say create rural power. Rural power is already there. We just have to rally it. We've got to collect it up and give it a focus. And that's what we're trying to do here a little bit this afternoon by talking about two particular tools that any movement has got to have. And one is coalition. We've talked already about that this morning, but we're going to talk specifically about it here today. And then, secondly, is media. We have to have our own media, and we'll be talking about that. The powers that be, of course, are not going to resolve our problems for us. They're the ones doing it to us, pretty much. And when I say the powers that be, I'm talking about what I call the 6 Bs, the bosses, bankers, billionaires, big shots, bastards, and bullshitters. Who think that they're the top dogs and we're just a bunch of fire hydrants out here. That's who we're battling, and that's what we got in front of us. Those powers, Woody Guthrie sang about them. Woody Guthrie had a song called Pretty Boy Floyd the Outlaw, great song, and he had a verse in it that said, as through this world I travel, as through this world I roam, you will see a lot of outlaws, but none will drive a family from his home. Some will rob you with a 6-gun, and some with a fountain pen. It's the fountain pens who are doing the serious stealing in our society today. And those are the ones that we're taking on this afternoon. The powers that be versus the powers that ought to be. Farmers and consumers, environmentalists, workers, immigrants, just plain folks out there in the countryside. You in this room are the experts. And so we're going to call on you today to talk about coalition and rural media, to share your experiences, your ideas, your hopes for what that might be, and how we might build that together and expand it beyond what it already is. Our focus is to revitalize, rebuild, and recreate. So don't hold back. We want to hear your stories and your ideas. This is not going to be a speechifying session. It's going to be an action session. And we want to hear your action ideas, sharing your stories as we team up to build the movement. I think of Farm Aids Forum here in terms of a little hardware store near my home in the south side of Austin, Texas. It's called Harold's Hardware. It's not a big box thing. It's just a little local place. But it's a great place because, you don't have to buy that whole box of nails. If you want 3 nails, they'll sell you 3 nails. and maybe you're confused on what you're trying to do. And they say, well, let's pencil it out here and see what you need. And they'll loan you a tool. You can take a tool home and bring it back. And the slogan of Harold's Hardware is, together we can do it yourself.
Amen. Amen.
That's got to be our slogan, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Deanna, doesn't it have to be?
Amen.
Yeah, we're square on that.
I'm in the Church of Hightower right now.
So
in the choir.
Deanna is now going to guide us a little bit on how we're going to proceed.
No pressure. So, yes, as Hightower mentioned, this is the activity session of the day. So we had a lot of talk this morning, like getting all of the ideas together, getting your brains churning. And what we're going to do here is talk to you. We want to hear from you. What's happening in your communities? And we're not focusing today necessarily, hopefully, on the sob stories. We know that things are difficult out there. We know that local news is falling apart. We know that our newspapers are shuttering, that coalitions are hard to build. We know all of those things. But what we want to hear is what is working out there? What is working in your communities? What can you share with each other? And what can you ask each other today? We are only here as facilitators and people to help you get that conversation going. We don't have all the answers. You do, and we want you to share them with each other. So we're going to be focusing on the joy of the work that we're doing together and the successes out there, some of the challenges maybe that we faced and how we've overcome them. Does that sound all right? I said, does that sound all right? Okay, we got to perk up from that lunch, okay? Go ahead.
Well, and to go ahead and get our juices rolling, we have a very special and good friend who has something to say to us about building coalitions right here.
Hey, brothers and sisters. My name is Sean Fain, and I am president of the United Auto Workers. I realize that with this video, I am addressing a gathering of farmers and rural people. In our present historical moment, there are profiteering political forces at work who would have Americans believe that an auto worker and a farmer have little to say to each other. Their goal is to divide us and to convince us that we are divided. They love political categories like right and left, urban versus rural, red hatred of blue. It's all bullshit. That's not what America is. They talk like that for a reason, because they know that we the people, us ordinary working families, are a force to be reckoned with. Nothing moves without us. When we organize and stand together, nobody can stand against us. I grew up in Kokomo, Indiana, in a state and an area known for both farming and factories. Like a lot of industrial workers, there's farming in our family history. Hell, a lot of my fellow UAW brothers and sisters come from farm families, and some even farm to this day. The folks who want to divide us don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that history either. That coalitions of farmers and laborers have built the engines of political progress in this country time and time again. From the Farmers' Alliances of the 1870s to the Farmer Labor Party of the 1920s and beyond to the Southern Tenant Farmers Union of the 1930s, to the United Farm Workers of the 1960s and 70s, to the family farm movement and meatpacking unions that are now jointly battling factory farm oppression. I hope that as you gather for Farm Aid this weekend, you'll think about what we can do to reestablish and reignite the Labor Farm Coalition, starting from right where you live. Let's team up. After all, we all want the same things: healthy families and healthy communities, to be paid fairly for our work, and hope for our future. With the revitalized Labor Farm Alliance, we can make farm, food, and labor policies work for the common good, not for the profiteers. Let's pledge at this seminal gathering in Saratoga Springs to start building that democratic future. Thank you.
All right.
Woohoo!
And thank you, Sean Fain. When Fain became president, elected by the membership of that great union, I wondered, well, is this really going to make any difference? And then I saw his first appearance, and he was wearing a T-shirt that said, "Eat the rich." I thought, yeah, it's going to be all right, I thought. In fact, I saw another T-shirt a guy talking the other day, and it said, you know, if we ate just one billionaire, the rest of them would shape up. Consider that as a policy.
Just seeding, just brainstorming here, spitballing, just, you know, getting the juices flowing.
Well, we've done it in the past, forming these coalitions. Can we do it again? Are we doing it again? So let's hear from you. Here's from her right here who could talk to us about it.
Yes.
There's Sarah Vogel, who's the former Secretary of Agriculture from the state of North Dakota. Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And what an inspiring video. I come from the North Dakota Democratic Nonpartisan League, which was an alliance of farmers and workers in 1919. And among other things, we have established the North America and South America's largest grain mill, which has been fully unionized for 110 years. I'll tell you more about that. I could talk your ears off, but I won't. I wanted to share something that happened in 1987 before I became Commissioner of Agriculture. I'd already done the Coleman versus Block case, and I was an assistant attorney general, and the 87 Ag Credit Act had been passed, and farmers across the country were so tremendously worried, and they didn't know how to fill out all those forms, so we were doing trips around the state and to tell them how to do this. And everywhere I went, I saw a guy with his hat. It said grain millers. And he would stand up and he would tell those farmers, we're with you. And so, you know, the union of farmers and laborers is so tremendously strong. And I also want to thank Jim Hightower. He came to North Dakota and campaigned for me. Thank you, Jim.
You have me to blame.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah Vogel. And any of the rest of you have comments about forming coalition with labor, with all different kind of coalitions that we have to have together?
Sorry. Wow, that went unexpected. Yeah. Oh, you got one over there. Yeah, actually, Angela, yeah. I hear you have a great story to share with us about a tiny coalition that you've built. So we've got big union, statewide stuff, and a coalition in your own community.
Yes, our coalition is really a grassroots effort, and I come from the Onondaga Nation, and I'm the supervisor there of the Onondaga Nation farm. But once we started doing our food sovereignty initiative there, it was kind of like Field of Dreams. So there was, every time we put up a shelf, the seeds would come and fill up that shelf. And through that farming network, we traveled to different communities for indigenous foodways gatherings and food summits, either as farmers or indigenous chefs. And there's people here with me who've traveled to all of these gatherings as well. But we started up a little group, and it was originally just about 50 of us. It was all indigenous corn growers. And we decided that we were going to reclaim the world one garden at a time. And that's actually what we're doing. So the seeds have heard our voice, and they've been coming back in large quantities. And the organization itself is called Braiding the Sacred. We do have a website called braidingthesacred.org. We're not a nonprofit or anything like that. We like to stay organic, and somehow Creator provides for all the work that we're doing. So even this organization, you know, I'm glad I got to be part of this, because the idea behind it is kind of similar to the idea behind Braiding the Sacred, which is we have to reconnect all our people back together. And we started the group in 2015. 2015, we started talking about it, and we had our first gathering on the Onondaga Nation in 2016. So there were 50 people there, And now we have tens of thousands of people involved in this group. And these are all indigenous people that are actually in the field. They're doing the work. They're growing the food. They're feeding their communities. They're putting food away in preparation for emergency preparedness. We're doing all of the things that our ancestors told us to. And the network keeps growing. So through that organization, we were gifted the corn collection of the late Carl Barnes. He was a Cherokee and Scottish corn farmer from Oklahoma. And he is the one that most people know created the glass gem corn that everybody sees out there, the rainbow corn. He also brought back a prophecy corn to his people, which was called the Cherokee White Eagle, which is a really miraculous corn. It's a blue and white corn that every kernel has a white eagle on the kernel. Once you shell it, you can see it's visible, and it's with their wings spread wide, like as if they're flying. So Carl's collection had over 4,000 varieties of indigenous corns, and now we are stewarding that collection, and along with rematriation. So we're giving all of the seeds back, and through giving the seeds back, land is coming back. So a lot of American farmers, citizens of the United States, our allies, are saying, I don't want my land to become corporate. I don't want my land to be developed. I don't want somebody to take over all the resources here that my family loved and stewarded for many generations, and they're giving the land back to indigenous people. So they find out who the indigenous people were, where they live, and when they're running out of descendants or no more farmers, they're passing it back to us. So we have 2 farms currently and a 3rd one on its way that farmers have returned back to the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So I'm thankful for that.
Amazing. That is great work. Thank you, Angela. Just mind-blowing. Oh, people waving. Oh, we got a story in the back. Am I gonna run the Donahue mic?
I'm doing it.
Okay. I know, right? Pour one out. Oof. Love that guy.
Can I go to Benny? I'm gonna go to
All the way in the back.
Yeah, I want to go to Benny.
Thank you very much. I'm David Center, and thank you. And I'm wearing 2 caps. I'm president of the American Agriculture Movement, and I'm also Farm Aid's historian. This
Amen.
is Farm Aid 39 for me. In 1986, talking about Farm Labor Alliance, I was part of the negotiating with Lane Kirkland, head of AFL-CIO, and his lead director, Bob McLaughlin. And we created a Farm Labor Alliance. We had a farm representative that attended all the labor meetings to see what they was working on so we could all support them. They had a labor representative attend all of our farm meetings to see what they needed to support for farmers. As a result, 1987, we was able to pass emergency farm legislation that started turning the corner on the farm crisis. So we can't just sit around and talk to each other as farmers. We got to reach out and talk to others. And so anyway, this is a great session, but this Farm Labor Alliance, we have to really work on that and recreate it again, because it's there.
How many
we
folks
have common
here?
interests.
I'm sorry. How many folks here are union members already? Hey, up, union folks.
Thank you.
Over here too. Thank you. Oh, we got another. Yes, please. Here we go. And then got another story over here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Goodness.
My name is Zena McFadden Jasper. I come from, both parents were sharecroppers in Paris, Tennessee. They went up north to get working conditions, and Daddy worked for GM and was a member of the UAW, so I benefited from that union, but understood the relationship between the workers and the farmers since I was a kid. And I just want to say that I agree with Mr. Center that absolutely that alliance is more powerful and can get more done if we ally with the other producers. I mean, we've said over and over that we know we're valuable, the farmers, because we produce food, and you can't live very long without it. And so we know that production is what makes us powerful. And how is it that we're so powerful, but we're being treated so poorly? Oh, by the way, I was married. My husband and I farmed in Wisconsin for 14 years. His son now runs the farm, so I have that relationship as well. You know, the wealthy understand very clearly that this alliance between the workers and farmers is very dangerous. And I have a very recent example to explain that. I don't know if y'all remember, I think it was like 2 years ago, the workers at John Deere went on strike. Yep. And do you know what the John Deere Corporation said? That those workers were doing the farmers bad because the farmers couldn't get their parts that they needed for their combines because it was near harvest season. But it was baloney because, you know, us farmers, we don't own those big new tractors and things, and we didn't need the parts, and we prepared a lot before y'all went on strike. But you see what they said. They tried to pit the workers and the farmers against each other. So that's a little sign in our mind that we should remember. Workers have been taking it on the chin for years and years now. Longer hours required, two-tier wage systems, lack of medical care, threats on our retirement. In fact, most workers don't even get retirement anymore. So they're natural allies because we know as farmers what we face, right? And workers have their list as well. They haven't been treated. It's not like the corporations are treating the farmers terrible and giving the workers steak and, a good life. They're not. And we're at a time in history where there's a convergence because we are realizing, I don't know if I'm lying, I apologize. But I heard that the USDA has said that they expect like 1/4 of the farmers in this country to go under over the next short period. If I'm lying, please point it out. But I had heard it from reliable sources. I just haven't gotten to the USDA site yet to find it. But anyway, regarding the workers, we have a strong tie to them, as we saw from what John Deere did. But there's one thing that has recently happened that I think we should really pay attention to. We talk about how the United States government is not doing what we need done for farmers, right? Well, if y'all think about one of the very close section of workers in this country, and that's the rail workers, right? Because our corn gets shipped down the river, or it gets shipped all over on trains, right? And the train workers have been faced with a really, really difficult things. They allow now trains to be a mile long. Used to be that was considered dangerous. But
it still is, actually.
It is damn dangerous. So, let me cuss. It is dangerous. And they are a mile long. And they've got the crews down to 2 people. Mile long, let me say that again. Mile long train, 2 people running it. All right?
Yep.
Well, the companies are saying, that's too many people. We're going to cut it down to 1. We want a 1-man crew. We need to save money. And so the rail workers who understand how hard it is to keep a train and the world safe with only 2 workers said, no, we're going to stand up against this. We're going to protect ourselves, and we're going to protect the working people of the United States. We are not going to allow 1-man crews.
And that's the kind of coalition that we've got to build
And you know what
across
the
the
United
board
States
in our country.
government said? You can't go on strike. They told the rail workers, you cannot go on strike. That's the only power that workers have is to say, I'm not going to work. That's the only power that they have, is to, in number, in mass, say, I'm not going to work.
And that's the.
So that's a very powerful
yeah.
thing for them to take
That's
away.
the-
I will finish. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
we just
know.
want to leave time for
Okay.
everybody else.
All
To
right.
be
The
able
only
to
thing I
speak
want to
up.
say then was that we've done some coalition building in Wisconsin. The
have.
the governor said that he did. He tried to take away the right to strike of all public employees in Wisconsin.
I think you went to speak on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to
there.
say that at the end, the farmers said that they were going to join, and they did. The Wisconsin
Yeah.
Farmers Union came and joined the workers.
Right.
And so
That's
cute-
what has to be put together, is
cute
the
little-
farmers with the
and the
workers,
workers.
with the consumers, with
Right.
the environmentalists, with the food activists generally. And
Okay.
that's a coalition that is going to make the difference in our country.
Last
not
story. Can I
not
just
just
tell
for
one little
workers and
story?
not just for the farmers themselves, but for the democratic
I better shut up.
possibilities that our country represents. When I first ran for agriculture commissioner, I would tell urban audiences, if you eat, you're involved in agriculture. And that we were going to unite the bean sprout eaters with the snuff dippers. And we were able to do that, to put together that kind of a coalition that related to
That is
everybody.
truth-telling.
And then focus on the broad policies that we have to
Amen.
have.
No, that is the truth-telling of who we reach out to. I understand the Rock Steady Farm. Where y'all at? Yeah, there you are. Rock Steady Farm. Woohoo! Local farm. Actually, you all are working on a coalition building campaign right now. This is what I hear. So tell us about what the work is, but also tell us a little bit about how you're doing it and how you're reaching out.
Sure. Thank you for letting me have the mic. My name is Maggie. I'm one of the farmers at Rock Steady. We're a queer and trans-led cooperative farm in New York, so Hudson Valley. About a few months ago, we started a campaign against Tractor Supply. So I don't know who here has shopped at Tractor Supply. A lot of rural farmers across the country shop there. A lot of rural farmers who are looking for feed, nuts and bolts for tractors, just general supplies that are kind of your everyday need that you need in a pinch, you go there. It really has the hold on a lot of rural spaces as one of the only supply stores that you can go to every day. So what happened on June 27th, at the very end of Pride Month, is they made a public statement dropping all DEI policies. They also dropped all their climate change and climate justice policies. They said they would not report to the HRC, so all of their worker rights, kind of like checks and balances, were getting erased. And they, just throw it in there, are not going to be present at any Pride and LGBTQ events. So they had been working for years on kind of elevating their status within the climate justice movement and within DEI policies. And after just 3 weeks of pressure from one prominent Twitter person, they dropped all of it.
Yeah.
And so hearing this, as a pretty out farm, I got a lot of emails about it. And I was just like, okay, who's saying anything? Who is doing anything about this? Because what they're doing is saying, we do not represent Black and brown people. We do not represent queer people. We are a rural corporation. That was what they were saying in all their public statements. And here I am just sitting in my house what is even happening? It makes me crazy just thinking that the place I've given thousands of dollars to over the last 10 years is now saying I don't even exist. Not only me, but all of my fellow farmers do not exist in rural spaces.
Amen.
And so what we started doing at Rock Steady is we started talking to other coalitions. So we're members of the Heal Food Alliance. Woo, woo, woo. We're also part of NEFOC. We also have members part of Black Farmers United. And we got together about 16 orgs started to put this campaign together to petition Farm Tractor Supply and ask the CEO to step down. And so right now we have almost 1,500 signatures. We have 60 farms and farm coalitions signed on. You can find the information online at our Instagram. We have a link to an online campaign. You can go to change.org and find the Tractor Supply campaign. But we were able, through these coalitions that we had been working with for the last 10 years, really, because that's what you do in rural areas, and farming's tough. You lean on each other. So these were coalitions that we'd already been working with. And in close community, when we made the call that said, can we do something, they showed up within a couple of weeks so we could build out this petition. The hard thing is that we're coming across right now is a lot of farmers want to sign, but they actually can't sign because there's nowhere else to shop. That's the hold that these corporations have. They have a complete monopoly on it. So we're trying to figure out kind of what's the next level, because not only is Tractor Supply doing this, 2 weeks later, John Deere did it, Lowe's just did it. Yep. Everyone is modeling what Tractor Supply said, word for word. So this snowball effect, which was what I was worried about, is happening. And unless we say something and say, no, we are here, this is rural America, this room is rural America, and we stand with each other, then this is just going to keep happening in other corporations, and they're just dropping it, and no one knows these things. So it's not an easy thing to say you're going to petition against one of your only sources, but we also know that, and we're trying to organize with other larger coalitions so they can kind of take the burden off of the farmers. But that's just an example of what we're doing at Rocksteady, and I think huge hands up to like all of you in this room. It's a real honor to be in this space with you all.
Yes. And on that note, we'll come to you next. On that note, Farm Aid has talked about we're going to be sharing a bunch of resources with you all after this gathering, so you don't have to necessarily worry about frantically writing down everything. What's that URL? That stuff is, we're going to be sharing that with you, and other resources that we're coming across. If there's one thing that I wish I could get rid of, of many things, but one of them is the idea that rural means white, rural means conservative, rural means straight, rural means Christian. It's like we want to break that apart, and I love that you're doing that. So let's support Rocksteady. I honestly wanted to get out like a whiteboard and start power mapping. Like, okay, how do we put this pressure on? Let's get this. So I'm ready to help.
Well, that is it. As Jesse Jackson put it, we might not all have come over on the same boat, but we're in the same boat now. That is a powerful political reality, and that was represented by Rock Farm there, and so many other comments that we're hearing, and we want to have more of you speak up about the tribulations and trials that you've had, the successes and the glories and the joys that you've experienced in trying to forge these coalitions. It is so important because, again, we really are all in this together, and that's why we have an agricultural and a food and an environmental policy and a worker policy that reflects corporate power and no other power than that. Food policy is not made by farmers. Food policy is not made by consumers, environmentalists, etc. It's made by corporate lawyers and lobbyists, people who could not run a watermelon stand if we gave them the melons and had the highway patrol flag down the customers for them. But they're in charge of making our food policy in this country. So that's what's got to change. We have to forge this coalition into a political coalition that will take power back. And as Maurice was saying, and a couple of other previous panelists have said, it's not just enough to focus on Washington. Focus on state power. Sarah Vogel made a huge difference when she was Ag Commissioner in North Dakota. We did quite a bit when I was Ag Commissioner in the state of Texas. People are doing that at a county level. Your county commissioner counts, and other offices like that. And you can win those offices. You can sneak up on them. You know, as a friend of mine said, said surprise them, hit them when they come out of church. You know, so got to find ways to do it. I grew up in a small town in Texas, and I was a small guy, and people would get in fistfights and stuff, and so I wore glasses, so I was always kind of standing on the side trying to hold everybody's coats and stuff, and the fight that was going on, it was, but I soon learned that you should not hit a man with glasses. You should hit him with something much heavier than that. And the heaviest thing we have is that coalition, that power of us together taking on a concentrated economic political power. That's what America really is about. We had to fight that in 1776. We've had to fight it in the abolition movement, the suffragist movement, the populist movement, the labor movement, the environmental movement, women's movement, et cetera, et cetera. It keeps coming back, but we keep coming back. And that's the power that's represented in this room. We want to hear more from you.
We've got a story over here. Tell us who you are, what you're working on.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Cuellar Oxford. I'm a native New Yorker who was transplanted to a rural part of the state, traditionally the Lenape part of New York, Ulster and Sullivan County. In Sullivan County, where I live, it is a rural community. We have no cities. And in the unique area where I live, the school district, 70% of the students are Latino students. They are Spanish-speaking students from all over Latin America. We are pretty much part of the corridor, the agricultural and food processing corridor that goes downstate. About 23 years ago, I became involved in the New York State Farm Worker Justice Campaign. And I'm very proud to listen to the stories. I loved hearing from our sister from Idaho, talking about the protections that she is working on there, because I understand that struggle. I was radicalized in 2004 when my senator, the third most powerful senator in the state of New York, refused to give portable drinking water to agricultural workers here in the state of New York. So that is how somebody with an accent from 124th Street, Jamaica, Queens, ended up on the front lines of farm worker justice here in the state of New York. And it was with my friends, because there ain't no party like a working family party.
She wore the T-shirt to the concert.
I'm an officer of the state party, just to share. But it was in 2004 that I found my tribe, I found my coalition, and when you find your pack, you roll with them. We were able to transform and eradicate Jim Crow from the state labor law here in New York State to give farm workers the full access to joining a union and to having all the protections that workers in the state of New York deserve. And I love, this is my first Farm Aid. Thank you, Charlotte.
Hell yeah.
Can't wait.
Amen. Doesn't it sometimes feel like church? Like, don't you? Friend, you had a labor comment. Let me figure out where the microphone went. There's a microphone.
Well, we're going. Let me just add that a previous panelist said that farm workers are farmers. Well, farmers are workers too.
Yeah.
And we got to recognize, we got to stop that dichotomy. We're a total community of eaters and growers.
Amen. All right, friend, tell us about it.
Hi, my name is Rand Wilson. I've been a union organizer for more than 40 years.
Woo-woo!
I've been a volunteer at Farm Aid since 1999, and since 2000, Farm Aid has been in a coalition with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters and with Teamster locals in the communities where the concerts occur. This will be the 23rd year that Teamsters are volunteering to drive volunteers, the artists, and stagehands from the venue to their hotel and to the airport and back. And that's an important coalition that Farm Aid has been in, working with the Teamsters to do who volunteer their time to be transporting and helping to make Farm Aid a success in whatever community we're in.
Amen. Love it. Thank you, Teamsters. And you know what? While we're at it, thank you to all of the workers that are working hard to put this room together for us. We thank the people feeding us, people cleaning stuff up after us, and keeping the lights on, and making the tech work, waving at the tech people. So thank you for all of your hard work. We had a story over here. Hi, Sienna. I met Sienna last night. I'm making friends at my first Farm Aid. Oh, a microphone is on its way over to you. I can tell you a story in the meantime. I'm originally from Central New York, Broome County. Anybody? Broome County? Oh, Broome County. My dad's from Delaware. Yeah, Broome County. They were. My dad's from Delaware County, and he grew up on a dairy farm, and he had 7 brothers and 4 sisters. And people would be like, wow, you have a big family. I have like 40-odd cousins. And they would say, wow, you guys Catholic? And the answer was always, no, we're farmers. That's what we do. Need people to work on the farm. All right, Sienna, tell us.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sienna Chrisman. Can you all hear me? Hear me okay? I'm with a group now. I mean, I know a lot of you from being in this work for a long time. I am now, for the last few years, with a group called State Innovation Exchange, or SIX. Thank you. And so talking about collaborative power, building coalitions, and Hightower was just talking about this, the importance of state government. So what we do at SIX is we work with state legislators. And I want to be really clear, that is state government. We don't work with the people who work in Washington. We work with the people who work in your state capital. So I can't tell you anything about Congress, but I can talk to you about state capital. So we work with state legislators, progressive state legislators all across the country, supporting them to advance progressive policy change on a variety of issues. My team, we work on supporting legislators to advance rural agriculture and food policy. Because as we know, even a lot of the progressive movement has not always been amazing on agriculture. And so we are working to try to change that in various regions across the country. So I am here both because I would never miss a Farm Aid, because it's really important to be in this room with all of you every year, and because this is our 3rd Farm Aid where we at SIX have brought a cohort of state legislators to be in space with all of you. So we've got legislators here from Vermont, Massachusetts, hi, New York, Rhode Island, and then we've got some folks from the Midwest, Iowa, Indiana, who just left briefly, and Ohio. And the thing, so our take is really, our strategy is what we call collaborative governance. And it's really about getting legislators and advocates, farmers, people on the ground, in the same room together, talking about issues, talking not about issues, talking about your pets or what other things are important to you, to build relationships and build trust. I think especially, like, again, I can't speak for members of Congress, but for state legislators in most states, they're like your neighbors. Mike Rice here from Vermont, like literally, he doesn't have any staff. He's doing everything and is like in the community all the time. Sorry to call you out. And like these state legislators are like very, very approachable. They are, your people who are just walking around, your kids are going to the same school. And so there's a lot of opportunity for all of us as advocates to kind of shift how we think about that relationship. And that relationship with your state legislator doesn't necessarily have to be, I would say shouldn't be, one of real like transactional relationship where you approach them saying, here's what I need you to do for me. It can be more of like, you show up at their office hours just to say like, hi, here's what I work on. And you invite them to your farm because legislators really love to go on farm tours, like so much. And also, legislators, I have found, I spent 10 years working directly with farmers. Legislators are so much like farmers. It's very similar. There's a lot of similar, like cat herding. And I mean that in the best way for all of you. So you can like approach them as people in your community to get to know and build common bonds with, so that then when an issue comes up that you really want to work on, that you care about, they know that, oh, I can work with you on this. And you're like already working together on some issue, and you're building not just, you know, interest for a bill, but you're actually starting to build like a movement and some political power around like not only how you would introduce and pass the bill, but then how you might get it implemented. And you kind of start to build this wave when you are approaching legislators in more of relationship than in a transactional way.
Yeah.
So that's what we are doing. It's amazing work. The legislators that I work with are really incredible people, and I encourage you all to get to know your folks. And right now they're all sitting over here. So if you'd like to come chat with any of them afterwards, feel free. Thank you.
Very good.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank
terrific.
you.
You know, that's a common theme that I'm hearing in the panels and the presentations by y'all, and then again by Maurice. Is we have to reach out to people who are not instantly like us, and it's best not to make assumptions about people, is what I'm saying. When I first started running for office in Texas, I went to a courthouse, was taken there to meet the officials in the courthouse, and my guide, lawyer, said, let's go up to the 5th floor and we'll see this old judge up here, district judge. He's a powerful guy, but he's pretty conservative, so don't dump your whole load on him. And so I sat across from him. He had his feet propped up on the desk and his hat pushed back and kind of nodding off, listening to this punk come in and tell him why he should be supporting me. And among the things I was running on was about the gas utilities ripping off people. But I didn't put it like that. I said, well, Judge, it just seems to me that some of these utilities are not being entirely fair to the consumer. And his feet slipped off of that desk and hit the floor with a big bang, and he leaned into me just a foot away from my face, and I thought, oh shit, even that was too much for him, you know. And he said, Hightower, in your private moments, wouldn't you say they're fornicating us? Though he used the more colloquial word for fornicating. And I said, yes, sir, I would. I have, and I will again. And so he said, well, then I'm going to support you if you're going to fight the utilities. And so he's supposed to be the conservative, you know, so we can't make assumptions about people. Got to find them out ourselves. So let's move on to other comments. These are great.
Yes. We can keep the conversation going. Oh, I saw a pointed. Somebody want to say? Oh, literally where the microphone is. And I need new glasses. Go ahead.
I need mine.
Okay.
My name is Elizabeth Collins. I'm an actual first-generation farmer, farming on a generational farm with a fifth-generational farmer. So I feel like, thank you. And thank you all. I feel like you all are here working for us, so I just want to put a little farmer's perspective to this talk, and also how we can create a coalition just of people, not so formal, of talking to the consumers. The consumers are really powerful, and I found in farming, I have a farm stay, so we invite people to our farm to stay and experience the food, the lifestyle, the conversation of regenerative farming, and the impact we have on our health, on the soil's health, and on the environment. That conversation is life-changing for these consumers. They do not have the opportunity to talk to us, to experience it, or to take that home and do something with it. But when they come to our farms and they see how amazing the food is, and they see that when they purchase food from a farm like ours, they are actually making an environmental change. They're making a health change. They're doing those things. So my statement is really just this there's a coalition in just our conversation, and any farmers inviting people to their farm and inviting them to this conversation that we're all having. It's great that we're having it, but it's those consumers, it's their dollars. If they don't spend it in the factory farms or big ag or big anything, that's our power. We don't need the government, and we do need the government and all these policy changes, but if consumers change their dollars, it affects us, and it keeps us in business, and it keeps family farms going. So,
amen to
consumers.
that. And yeah, we're going to keep these coalition building conversations going and connecting. It's so important for you all to connect with each other, because like we've been saying all along, you have the expertise. Other people in the room have different kinds of expertise. Together we can Gen X reference, but we can Voltron together and, take on, okay, thank you. Okay, one person, one. All right, next thing we want to talk about, and we can keep talking about coalition building too, but the next thing we're going to talk about is local and rural media. The importance of keeping our local journalism together and alive. We know that it's struggling, but we've heard, there are success stories out there.
Indeed. A progressive movement has always ridden on media. And when the power establishment's media, corporate media, fails us, which it always does, then we have to recreate our own. And we did that in the Revolution, Thomas Paine and the pamphleteers. We did it with the suffrage movement. We did it with the abolition movement. We did it with the populists had their own newspaper. They had a lecture bureau that had 40,000 members who could go out on any given night and give the speech. That's a powerful personal presence that was very, very overwhelming. And then the labor movement has always had its own newspapers and its radio stations. So we have done this in the past, and now we have to do it again. Again, a little Texan story, the Dallas News in the 1950s, the news media in Texas was not covering any progressive activity, no progressive candidates. Ralph Yarborough running for Senate in that state, he could get 5,000 people show up in Dallas, Texas, and it would not be a mention in the paper the next morning. So the progressives had a slogan, said for the newspaper, the morning paper, it said, Dallas Morning News, if it happens in Dallas, it's news to us. So we knew we had to do something. And the people then created the Texas Observer, the most progressive, long-standing, progressive, independent publication in the country. And then that led to a political movement, labor supporting it along with the farm community, the Texas Farmers Union in particular, joined in, and we spread the word. Back then, you had to pay to vote. You had the poll tax, so literally had to pay to vote. So we had a program of going out into rural areas in East Texas with black voters and paying their poll tax. It amounted to like $25 in today's money. It's hard enough to get people to vote without saying, by the way, give me $25. So we covered that, and we got people voting, and that led to that whole movement that began with the media led to the election of Ralph Yarborough to the U.S. Senate, to Barbara Jordan being in the Congress, to Paul Moreno being elected first Mexican-American to the Texas legislature, et cetera, et cetera. So media becomes core to it. And we have got to build that. And the good news is that I think we are. So we want to hear some stories from you. Maybe you've tried to start a media, or you've lost your rural newspaper and are interested at least in how to restart it as maybe a nonprofit, as maybe an internet paper. All the possibilities that are out there. Forging, again, your own speakers bureau to go around. Doing documentaries, making presentations in schools. All these are media. This is media contact. Some of you might present at farmers markets where you live. That's an enormous media opportunity. People are coming to you. Your customers are coming to you and getting something that they want, which is good food, and you have the chance to face-to-face talk to them about the issues that matter, about the big policy issues. So we have to organize this media structure again, because of course the Gannett chain and the networks, television networks, and et cetera, are often, so it's leaving rural media to the most right-wing, extreme, absurdist people on earth. I know we're not supposed to be political, but J.D. Vance is giving Weird a bad name. So we have to establish our own media to not just to counter that, that's important to do, but to put forth our positive message about economic fairness, social justice, equal opportunity for all people.
That's right. Amen. Yes. I hear my friend Michael has some stories about some rural media and some local journalism happening. Michael.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so happy to be here with y'all. Michael Shimidas. I'm with the Rural Democracy Initiative. We're a national organization that supports groups doing rural organizing. Really excited to support groups like the Missouri Rural Crisis Center and State Innovation Exchange. And then we've been talking about coalitions, so I also wanted to mention that I'm a local elected official just south of here in Columbia County. And groups like the Working Families Party have been so important for my work as a local elected official. And so it's really exciting to be here with all of y'all, to meet a lot of new people and to see a lot of people working together. So one of the things that we do at Rural Democracy Initiative is support groups doing sort of really amazing media and communications work. To sort of like call back from this morning's session, it was said that sort of we're not getting what we need, and we need to make the future in a way that we will. And I think that's a good framing for how we should be approaching media and communications, in the sense that that's the message that we want to be getting out, and oftentimes the media is not effectively doing that, that we're not getting what we need. But it's also a note for our media infrastructure itself, that the media infrastructure, we're not getting what we need, and we need to remake that infrastructure so it meets our needs. So I wanted to call out a couple examples of groups that we're working with around the country that are doing really incredible work. So one is the Caldwell-Hayes Examiner. It works in Caldwell County and Hayes County in Texas. And this is a group of people that had a very specific sense of who their audience was and what the problems were. And in general, they felt like they saw all this government corruption, they saw rampant police abuse, and they saw a really sort of like over-incarceration of people, where people were sort of needlessly getting put in jail for things that really they shouldn't be in jail for. And that the media was not covering the sort of like intersection between police abuse and corruption. And so they made their own print newspaper that it's like distributed at cantinas and sort of all around town, and they're doing their own investigative journalism, or they're doing FOIA requests to sort of discover their sort of like really rampant corruption that is actually changing local laws in not only in their local city, but those local cities are that like those policies that are being passed in their local city because of their reporting are being modeled all around the state of Texas, and they're having huge changes around the state of Texas because of this one community's commitment to investigative journalism and publicizing it. So I think that's like a really powerful model, and in some ways it just goes back to the roots where they're trying to figure out the truth, they have a message, they have an audience, and they're just doing literal print journalism. So it's really exciting. I think that's a model that we can reproduce in all of our communities. Another example I wanted to call out is a group called In Union. They're sort of inspired, we were just talking about a lot about union work. They're sort of inspired by this traditional union newspaper or newsletter that goes out to union members. And they're working in the Rust Belt and in Pennsylvania, and a lot of places where you have sort of people who used to be in unions, and those union jobs are no longer there, but they're sort of reproducing that same communications model of having a newsletter that goes out to people who should be in unions, but those jobs don't exist anymore, where they're just giving like the real facts about this is what we need. We're not getting what we need, and this is how we get there. And they've had huge responses of just like literally printing newsletters and mailing them out to people. And I think that's also a model that we can be doing in all of our communities. So I just wanted to lift that up. Thanks.
Terrific.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that fits with the comment we heard earlier, too, of don't do dumb stuff. There's smart stuff that is just laying on the ground out there that we can learn from. My Aunt Eula was a farmer with her husband, Ernest, in Fannin County, had a small farm. And for the first time in the 1950s, the Rural Electrification Administration came in, and they had electricity, so they could put a pump in a creek and move water into the house for the first time. That was a big deal. But one day the water was coming out all murky, and the men were standing around looking at the faucet and thinking, well, I don't know, maybe we need a new pipe, maybe we need some chemicals. And my aunt turned to me and said, Jim, the water won't ever clear up till we get the hogs out of the creek. That is our problem, isn't it? The hogs are in the creek. And they're fouling our economic, political, and environmental water. So we got to get the hogs out of the creek, and this is the way to do it. Starting our own media. Charlotte?
Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Olympic San and I'm a farmer in Massachusetts, central Massachusetts, and I hi to the co-ops and farms, a new model. So co-ops and unions have a long history in the United States, and but I wanted to say with the media, I'm a member of the Northeast Organic Farming Association, well known as NOFA Mass. We have, as an association, a newsletter with all the NOFAs, so we have 7 NOFAs chapters in different states, and it's called The Natural Farmer. So if anyone is a member of NOFA, get The Natural Farmer for free. It is a great way for us to communicate with each other and get aligned politically, even though like we are in different states and with different issues. I think it's important. Sometimes we're working on trying to get the news in Spanish, so we have the Spanish corner coming up next year. Holla for the folks that speak a different language and work our fields. But I wanted to say that it's important not to forget that not everybody can read and write. So the radio is a great way, but it become really, really expensive to own a radio. And I think the only way is, again, if you have a bunch of people together to be able to afford it. So just putting it out there, if somebody wants to start a radio for farmers, let's have the conversation.
Yeah, I love that idea. I want to start a radio station for farmers. Actually, there's a guy out in Wisconsin, Sage Weil, that has that's been purchasing and then giving back rural radio stations. And we want to come over, while we're walking over, we got a person over here, our friend JD has a story. I wanted to share with you also, again, these will be in resources that get provided to you, but some friends who do specific work, which we should say also, a lot of people who might be here talking more about media are actually at another conference this weekend down in Atlanta. The Online News Association is happening this weekend. There's a lot of great getting a local news site off the ground at tinynewsco.org, creating a newsletter to inform your community, newsletterguide.org. All of these resources exist, and we are going to get them in your hands so that you can help figure out how you're going to make it happen. Oh, who's this over here? Is this J.D. Schulten?
J.D. Schulten.
So I'm from Iowa, and in my neck of the woods, we were referred to as people who wear last year's clothes and read next year's books. And so along those lines, in western Iowa, where I hail, we had a lot of great small-town journalists, including Art Cullen from the Storm Lake Times. Thank you. He won the Pulitzer Prize, second smallest newspaper to win that prize, and he did it writing about water quality in Iowa and how horrific it is. But what a bunch of small-town papers kind of saw the writing on the wall, and so they established the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation. And so while the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation provides grants to support, create sustainable models of community journalism in Western Iowa while not having editorial influence over it, yada, yada, yada. So that's just one way we're combating that. But the other thing I want to talk about is a lot of great things happening here, and we all talk about the need for change. And the best political advice I got was a gentleman named Frank LaMare. He was a Native American activist from across the river in South Sioux City, Nebraska from me. And when I first got politically active, I go, what do you do when you have to have these uphill battles? And he goes, JD, if you want change, you have to get uncomfortable. And once you get uncomfortable, you have to get others uncomfortable. And so this room, we have a lot of people who are getting uncomfortable, and our jobs is to get people who are out there uncomfortable. And so one of the ways I do that too is, along with Hightower's Substack, which you should all be reading, I do a weekly newsletter called You're Probably Getting Screwed. And
it's great.
It's an anti-monopoly newsletter. And so, so if you want to subscribe to that, that's screwed.substack.com. So thank you very much.
Thanks, JD.
JD, by the way, is not only a practicing politician. We're looking for a vaccine for that, but meanwhile, but he's also a professional baseball pitcher, and even at I don't know, are you 26 or however old you are? He's pitching.
He's 44.
These very days. Of course, he hasn't faced me before. You were looking at the starting second baseman of the Denison High School Yellow Jackets. So I died when I first saw my first curveball. So.
Yes, we have another person here.
Thank you.
Hey, Fran.
You've been talking about starting your own media. Well,
here I am. Yay! Tell us about it.
Since April 2021, I've published an online publication called Local Food Forum in Chicago. It is certainly the only publication in the Chicago area that's covering local food ecosystems exclusively, and it may be the only one in the country for as far as I know. I'm a career journalist. I've been writing for 45 years, spent first 30 of them as a political journalist in Washington, D.C. But I always
That was a good time.
Yeah, I got out just in time, 2011. I always had a passion for food, grew up with it. Just at that day and time where I grew up, food wasn't considered a career for boys, so I went the political route. I interface with the good food movement as a consumer, home cook. My wife's happy that I do all the cooking. For years, early shopper at Whole Foods and farmers markets before it was cool, back in the 80s. And had some health issues that really made eating a healthier diet a lifestyle. I also had the good sense almost 40 years ago to marry an Illinois farm girl, which is how I ended up in Chicago. And when I moved to Chicago, I was determined, having experienced 30 years of dealing with politicians, that I just wanted to work at the grassroots community level to work with people who were affecting positive change. And luckily enough, through the magic of networking, I ended up in the food space where I wanted to be. And I worked for a nonprofit called Family Farmed in Chicago for a number of years. Jim, I think you remember them. And then cycled out in 2021 and started this thing. And there were two things that I recognized during my time at Family Farm. One is that the mass media wasn't paying any attention to what people were doing. There were so many people doing such great work to advance the cause of a better food system, and the mass media was not paying attention. And the other thing I realized is that we did have people doing all this great work, like people in this room. Farmers markets, co-ops, farm-to-table restaurants, food educators, food justice advocates. But at the end of the day, everybody was so focused on their own work. They were working in their own silos. And one of the reasons I created Local Food Forum was to try and create greater interaction between these units. Now, if you've never heard of Local Food Forum, it's because until now, it's been intensely Chicago-focused for two reasons. One is that that's where I am, and that's where my network is, so it's where I know folks. But the other thing is, like Jim, but not as successfully, I was working in Substack exclusively, and even though I published almost every day, there was only so much you can cram into a newsletter. So 3 months ago, I started a website called localfoodforum.com, and I'm really hoping to nationalize this because, we can talk to each other in Chicago, but I think we advance this movement if we can connect local food ecosystems all across the country. So I invite everybody here, because everybody here has a story to tell. And I like to say, because I'm a one-man band here, that my two favorite words in the English language are contributed content. So come see me over here. I got a whole deck of cards. And I'd love to tell your story. I'd like to share your stories. But the other thing is, like Jim and me, it is so easy today to start your own media. And you can get on Substack in like an hour or less. So if you want to just tell your own story, transmit it, even if you're sharing it just with a small community, that's great, but you never know. There may be people all around who want to hear that kind of story, and they want to connect with you, and they want to connect the dots. So, we've got to spread this message far and wide using as many channels of information as we can. I've got one, but let's get more and send me your stories.
Hey, thanks, man.
The thing is that the creativity is just endless. Whatever you want to do, you can find a way. And you're not going to start off being NBC or being Gannett, but thank God, because then money will control you. Money will control what you say. Rather, you can control what you say with your own innovation. And it can be it can be small, it can be relatively small, it could be relatively big, but it's yours. And that's the thing, yours as a movement. And it's the best way to build a coalition as well. I've got a friend down in Texas who's been a pioneer in the organic movement. And as he says, those who say it can't be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. And that would be people like this who are going out there and making their own media. Charlotte?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Alicia Matthews. I'm with Kidogo Farms. I'm representing the Federation this weekend, and I'm out of Georgetown, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Go Georgetown. And I'm also Gullah Geechee from the Eastern Seaboard. If anybody don't know what Gullah Geechee is, see me in the hallway. So I wanted to add from a ingestion perspective, when we're talking about media, make sure we're considering our audience. People don't read anymore. It's the thing. People don't read anymore, especially younger people. So if your audience is someone our age, my age, us age, then maybe print media is still effective. But when you're thinking about kids, and I'm a new and beginning farmer, and I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, and if they can watch a 7 to 10 second clip, that's gospel. So when you're considering, especially from a marketing perspective, or when you're trying to, launch a new product, think of short video clips, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. That's where the kids are. That's what they're looking at. So I don't have a TikTok. I don't have a YouTube channel because I'm not there yet and I got kids. So I just want to, let everybody, no matter what your age is, if you're marketing to younger consumers, consider how many words you're putting in that ad, because they're not reading it. They're gonna, if they can convert it to a verbal video, your car will read text messages to you now. So, we just want to also consider that how we, get that information to the masses has to also change with the times.
Amen to that. And that's the ideas along the lines of what we were just talking about, broadcast. We've been spoiled by the idea of large media as the most impactful way to get a story out. A strategically built community that has strong relationships and that can get the word out about something, a community of 200 people can be far more powerful in that sense than, getting something on the nightly news and maybe, 100 people saw it, but who's going to take action from it? So building up those community resources are really, really important. And to your point about audiences and know who you're working on reaching. For example, our audience, a lot of people in the social media space have started to abandon Facebook. Facebook is not where the young people are, so people are just running off in droves. We actually have a huge audience on Facebook, and it's a really important platform for us. So that's going to be a place that we're going to put the work and make sure that we're reaching people there and doing it in a way that is digestible and understandable and all those things. And you know, shout out to podcasts. I mean, we're both big radio people, so podcasts also, multilingual podcasts, all of that really important. And there are just tons of resources out there to help you figure this out too for your communities. Had a hand back here.
Hi, I'm Patty Naylor. I'm from Iowa.
Hi.
Great to have JD here. We also have the Iowa Farmers Union that has a lunch and learn every week, I believe, which is really great. But I'm also president of Family Farm Defenders, which is based in Wisconsin. We're members of National Family Farm Coalition and Rural Coalition, and we are really happy to be here at Farm Aid. We have a newsletter that we publish about twice a year, and we realize that the same writers are doing the same, are doing articles every time, and so we're really trying to encourage people to submit poetry or artwork and other sorts of media that isn't necessarily the written word, because this has a lot of power also. Song also has a lot of power, and we need to remember those kinds of media as well. I guess that's what I wanted to say. Anyway, it's great to be here.
Yes. Right up here. Right up here. Why y'all so quiet?
Y'all good? Y'all still with us?
Yeah.
Watch me slide across this room.
All right, so everyone was talking about making their own media, which ironically made me think of a piece of children's media that was written by Rick Riordan, and the character is named Carter Kane, and his dad was talking to him about fairness, and he said, Carter, fair is not everyone getting the same. Fair is everyone getting enough of what they need, and the only way to do that is to make it happen yourself, which is what we're doing by making our own media.
Oh, I love that.
Just drop the mic on the floor.
Okay.
Drop the mic.
Mic drop. Drop. And we actually...
Thank you. Give her a hammer. She nailed it. She nailed it.
I love that so much.
I'm sorry. I'm sick of hearing myself talk. I have to be with myself all the time. Communication, I agree with everything here. I think also there's a way that we can work within the consolidated media system that we're in right now. This is my 20th year at MRCC. I've seen our rural papers become, over those 20 years, eviscerated by USA Today, pretty much, and Gannett. And investigative journalism is a big deal too, that is being taken away. A functioning democracy based upon representation is based upon a well-educated populace, and that's what the media's job is. But what we can do within the consolidated media is they're sort of searching for content. So one thing, and media relations is also relationship-based too. It should not be transactional. So if you create relationships with media, these local people that are generally working there, and they're like 4 people working there now, maybe 2 people working there now, and they've got an op-ed page, and you talk to them every once in a while, you can get your stuff placed. And if you get your stuff placed, people read it, and people read it both online. They also post it on social media, but if you go into legislative offices a lot, you see that the legislative staff are oftentimes reading media and cutting it out and putting it on the legislators' desks. So it's not right, but there is ways that we can work within the consolidated corporatized media and still get our narrative and message out there. If you ever need help with it, just let me know.
Amen.
And also if you have members, if they write things, have them send you the stuff they write. Sitting in front of a blank piece of paper is really hard. They write stuff, it sort of is tedious sometimes, but being able to edit that down and then submit it as an op-ed and then get it in the paper, it's not that hard, especially if you create those relationships. Thank you.
Yeah, and letters to the editor, especially in a campaign season, are hugely influential. So get them letters to the editors out.
Yes, once again, we're back to doing it ourselves in all forms. And just, you will imagine something else. For example, if they won't read, draw a picture for them. Deanna has just done that with a, what do we call it?
What almost everyone gets wrong about rural voters.
Yeah.
Hightower and I made a cartoon together. You can find it on the Substack I forgot to plug, so thanks for mentioning that, JD. That is jimhightower.substack.com, and it's a fun cartoon.
It's a great little cartoon, little stick figures moving along and telling the story about monopoly power without just boring people to death with it. So you can make your own, and as the lady indicated, that probably your children are making them already, and encourage that and spread that as well. We need to kind of close off here, I guess, so I'll just leave you with a couple of things.
Can we get one more real quick?
Yes, sure.
Yes, you're in
Where
charge.
Are you?
Since when? You want to stand up? So
I'll do
2
whatever
more.
you
We'll
want,
get here,
Charlotte.
and we'll get Rose over there.
Okay.
And then we'll
Great.
Okay,
Sure.
great.
Yeah, only if you agree to close, Jim. Hey, everyone. My name's Tommy. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I just wanted to add a little bit of perspective from the long-form perspective. I think one of the things that has been eye-opening for me and also challenging for me with the attention spans is working in long-form media. But it's also really fun because, as we all know, stories are always a lot more nuanced and a lot more gray than headlines or 90-character tweets make it seem. And so it's a unique challenge to get those forms of media out there because, you know, even myself, it's hard for me to get through a feature film without, you know, a second device in front of me. But ironically, one of the places we have had the most success has been in actual physical screenings with like physical people in a room watching a film. It's cool because when the lights go down, you're almost on a desert island. It's rude to look at your phone still. And it really allows folks to be transported into another world and you know, capture all those, you know, feelings of empathy that you would have if you actually had a conversation with someone from a different place. So I just wanted to put a +1 out there for the long-form media, a +1 out there for in-person events, and also just give a shameless plug that we are trying to get a documentary out there called Underdog. It's about a rural farmer in Vermont, and it sort of holds equal parts joy and difficulty, and I think that is a beautiful part of Farm Aid's mission, is that it leads with joy to talk about the difficult things, and that's something that I really appreciate about our rural communities and hope we can carry forward.
Terrific.
Amen. Thank you. We had one more person over here. Oh, the microphone is coming.
We're going to take up a collection and get 2 microphones for the next Farm Aid.
I stole one. That's part of the problem.
Hi, I'm Rosa Saavedra. Hi, from Rural Coalition and Compañeras Campesinas. I don't know if my boss is here, but if she is, she can attest to the fact that I'm the world's worst at documenting stuff. But I recognize that is such an important part of the work that we do because it's not as visible. So I'm listening to you guys talking about the Substack thing. And I mean, I think that opens up some really good opportunities for folks to get to know each other, maybe in a different way. We do it kind of like how the other guy was talking about, kind of the long way, and that is taking the stories from one place to another. And I realized that, you know, while this sounds like it's like a great idea, I got to see how can we use this, and because we work in Puerto Rico. And then I think, oh, I remember, probably more than half the people we work with don't have any kind of connection, internet connection. So the long way of kind of saying, oh, I was over there, even though Puerto Rico is a relatively small island, you know, 100 by 35 miles, it's like huge distances, you know? So the one person taking somebody's story to another place, and then that person sharing it with other people. So I'm really curious to see if there's interest, to see about how can farmers here and how can people here hear about and know about what's happening in Puerto Rico with Puerto Rican farmers. You know, I mean, everybody I talk to, it's like, wow, you know, they're surprised. Yeah. You know, so there is a language difference thing there, but again, in Puerto Rico, the majority of the people speak Spanish and are monolingual Spanish speakers. So, the majority of things coming out to them and from USDA is in English. So there's this huge communication gap, and of course, like farmers here don't really know. We were at a farm yesterday, Elizabeth, yeah, and I remember that the farmer said, I wouldn't have guessed there was somebody here from Puerto Rico, you know. So it's the same community, you know, and how can I mean, maybe it can be going out instead of an internal thing. I just don't know how to do that. And somebody with the blue cap said they would be offering some help, or not help, but they would be just call me and ask me, whatever. So I would like to know that person. He was out there. The blue hat.
He stepped out for a second, but also that's going to be part of the resources that we're going to be sharing with one another, and figuring out ways. Farm Aid is going to be figuring out ways to keep you all connected with each other, so that you can address these issues. You can put that out to the community and say, "Hey, this is what we're facing. How do we do it?"
Thank you, because that's like kind of a subculture. you know, there's the farmers in the U.S., and then there's the Puerto Rican farmers, which are also part of the U.S.
Yeah.
But not really considered.
Marginal in an incredibly terrible way. Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap up.
Well, we're going to let me just leave you with two thoughts here that occurred to me as we were discussing things, and that is one, persevere. You're not going to get it done the first time, maybe. You're going to start something, and it's going to go slowly, and maybe you want to quit. But you need to persevere. As Willie Nelson put it, the early bird might get the worm, but it's the second mouse that gets the cheese. Y'all might want to draw that out a little bit to see what it is. But mainly, we need to be intentional about what we're trying to do. We're not here asking for political power for rural areas. We are becoming political power for rural areas, and that's a big difference. We're going to do it ourselves, make it happen. As the late, great Southern humorist Louis Grizzard once said, something that we in the South have always known to be true, and that is that there's a big difference between being naked and being naked. Being naked means you have no clothes on. Being naked means you have no clothes on and you are up to something. We've got to get up to something together. Thank you very much. Thanks for being out for Farm Aid.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks to the crew.